All right, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about something that affects literally millions of people every single day, the basic laws that are there to protect workers all across India. And this isn't going to be some dry legal lecture. It's really about understanding the invisible shield that's supposed to guarantee your rights when you're at work.
I mean, have you ever really thought about it? When you start a job, what's actually in place to make sure you're going to be safe and treated fairly? It's not just luck, right? There's a whole system, a crucial framework of labor laws that's supposed to have your back.
And it's so easy to think of these laws as just, a bunch of red tape or some dusty old rule book. But they're not. At their absolute core, they represent a promise. A fundamental promise that's made to every single person who works in this country. A promise of dignity, of safety, and of justice. And that promise, it comes straight from the top. The entire foundation for India's labor laws is woven right into the fabric of the Constitution itself. The guiding principle, the North Star for all of this, is the idea of social justice. It's all about making sure the dignity of every individual is protected, no matter what.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of specific laws and acts, I think it's really important to understand the why behind it all. What are the big ideas that actually shape this whole legal landscape?
So that big term, social justice, what does it really mean here? Well, it's the central pillar holding everything up. It's all about creating a balance, making sure that as the economy grows, it doesn't happen at the expense of human dignity. It means everyone should have fair access to opportunities and a safe place to work. And here's where you can see how that big idea gets translated into real, concrete goals. The objectives are super clear. Protect workers from being taken advantage of, make sure working conditions are safe and humane, provide a social security net, and keep things peaceful between employers and employees. And it's worth noting, this isn't just happening in a bubble. These principles line up with global standards from the International Labor Organization, the ILO. Okay, so now that we've got the foundation, let's see how these principles are actually put into action. We're going to start with laws that were designed specifically for the physical places where people work. This timeline is pretty cool because it shows you that this system didn't just appear out of nowhere. It grew. It evolved over decades, responding to what the country needed at the time. You see the first laws popping up right after independence, which makes perfect sense. India was industrializing, and you needed rules. Each one of these laws was created to solve a specific problem. So where did they even begin? Well, they started with the most obviously dangerous workplaces. In that post-independence industrial boom, the absolute number one concern was making sure that the new factories and mines weren't, well, to put it bluntly, death traps. And here are two of the most important early examples. You have the Factories Act of '48, which basically set the standard for health and safety inside factory walls. And then just 4 years later, the Mines Act did the same thing for the incredibly hazardous world of mining, regulating everything from proper ventilation to having emergency plans in place. But look, protecting the physical place isn't enough, right? The law also had to evolve to protect the people, especially the workers who are most vulnerable to being exploited no matter where they actually happen to be working. And this marks a really critical shift. The focus starts to expand from just the location to the actual type of labor. People began to realize that specific groups, like contract workers, people who migrate for work, and of course children, needed their own unique shields of protection. And here you can see that evolution happening in real time. As the economy changed through the decades, so did the kind of work people did. The 1970 Contract Labor Act was a response to the rise of temporary work. The '79 Act acknowledged that a growing number of people were moving between states for jobs and needed protection. The 1986 Child Labor Act was a landmark piece of legislation tackling a huge social issue. And then the '96 Act zeroed in on the massive and often unregulated construction sector. So after going through all these individual pieces of the puzzle, what's the big picture here? Why does this collection of laws really matter, not just for workers, but for all of us?
I think the best way to picture it is like a giant safety net. Each individual law is like a single thread. But when you weave them all together, they create something strong. This net is there to catch people, to make sure that as our economy grows and changes, that basic fundamental human right to work in a safe and dignified place is never, ever sacrificed.
So let's just boil it down to the key takeaways. First, remember that everything starts with the Constitution's promise of social justice. Second, these laws grew over time, first focusing on protecting specific places, and then evolving to protect specific people. And finally, the ultimate goal through it all has always been the same: to ensure safety, fairness, and dignity at work. Simple as that. And that leaves us with a really important question for today. I mean, the way we work is changing faster than ever before. You've got remote jobs, automation, the whole gig economy. The real challenge for us now is to figure out, how does the safety net need to evolve again to protect the workers of tomorrow?